Good morning. Okay, today we're going to read chapter 22, possibly 23. This is called The Return of Bounder. Below ground, Aerith could hear joyful yapping and barking from the kits up above. Part of him wanted to go up and see what was happening. After hearing so many stories about Bounder from the kits, he was curious about him and wondered what he was truly like. But he worried even more how the fox would treat him. While Aerith hesitated, an excited Flip rushed down into the den. Aerith! He cried. Why are you staying down here? Come on up, it's Dad! He's back! Don't you want to meet him? And guess what? He brought a whole fresh chicken just for us. Isn't that fantastic? It's the best thing I've ever eaten. A lot better than anything Mom or you ever got us. Come on, look! With that, the excited fox raced back up to the surface. Even as Aerith knew it was good that Bounder had returned, he kind of wished the fox had not. Aerith was not unfamiliar with jealousy. He recognized the almost forgotten feeling in himself now. It infuriated him. You pocket of a pig poke, he accused himself. You're an idiot, a fool, a dope. The force of his own barrage propelled him up the entry tunnel. Once at the top, he poked his head out and looked around. Bounder was stretched out on the ground, forepaws extended, tail straight behind him, head held high. There was an air of muscular pride about him as he gazed down at the kits. The three youngsters were frolicking before him, yapping and growling joyfully, tails wagging wildly. They were in the midst of devouring the chicken, which they must have pulled apart as soon as it was offered. But even as they ate, they kept breaking away from the food to leap at their father, pummel him with their paws, nip at his fur, roll on his back, then rush back to their food lest they miss a delicious morsel. All the while they also were, as best they could with their mouths full, jabbering away, telling Bounder everything they had been doing. They talked simultaneously, paying no heed to one another. Aerith had never seen them so happy. There was endless chatter about the tracks down by the traps. There were 16 of them, Dad, 16! They were so ugly and really scary. On they went. How Flip had the idea of making snowballs to find them safety, how they managed to make the balls, how the balls had worked. There was talk, too, about the big snowstorm and, in passing, the sad death of Leaper. But that talk was brief. There was much more talk about how they had managed to keep everything going. Mom left us a whole storage den of food, Dad, Nimble explained, so we have plenty to eat. But this is so much better than anything she left, Tumble quickly put in, his mouth full of chicken. The only thing the kits never mentioned was Aerith. Bounder himself gave a little response to the youngsters other than a few nods and yaps, just enough to make it appear that he was aware the kits were talking to him. Then, quite casually, as if by accident, Bounder turned and gazed at Aerith. Their eyes met. In an instant, Aerith recognized him as the fox he had met in Dimwood Forest a long time ago when Poppy had first run into his log. He could not help but grin at the memory, telling himself he had every reason to detest this fox, and that nothing ever would alter that. Nothing. Well, hello, Aerith, Bounder said in a low, even voice. What a surprise to see you here. Nice to see you again, Aerith returned, trying to keep the snarl out of his voice, but not quite managing. Nimble, hearing the exchange, looked up and around. "Oh, right, Dad, this is Aerith. He's been staying with us." "Has he?" Bounder said. "Yeah," Tumble put in as he looked up from his food. "But don't worry, now that you're back, he'll go away. That's what he keeps telling us." Aerith flinched. It was Bounder who grinned now. "Been keeping warm in my den, Aerith," he said to the porcupine. "I've been taking care of your kits," Aerith replied sharply. "Where have you been?" "Oh, you know how it is, Aerith," the fox said in his most casual way. "Business, constant business. It keeps me on the go. I wish I had time to hang around and take it easy, like you," he added with a smile. "But then, some of us have to work hard to make a living." "Dad," Tumble said, "do you want to see how we make the snowball to find the traps? Do you? Please?" It was our own idea. "Be delighted to, son," he said. "Delighted." He stood up to his full height. He was much bigger than the kits, and Aerith too, for that matter. The young foxes fell back and stared at him with wide-eyed admiration. "Dad," Nimble said, her voice tinged with awe, "how big are you?" "Oh, pretty big," the fox returned casually, "and someday you might be as big too." "As big as you?" Flip asked in astonishment. "Could be, if you eat all the meat you can." He looked at Aerith. "We foxes are mostly meat eaters. You know, mice and such." "Come on, Dad," Tumble cried. "I really want to show you how to get those traps." "Be right there, son. You guys go ahead. I need to tell Aerith some things." "Dad," Flip said. "What?" "I think you better stick to the paths we made. There's still one trap we haven't found. Isn't that right, Aerith?" He looked over at Aerith. "Right," Aerith said glumly. Flip, sensing something was wrong, cast a worried look at Aerith, then at his father before joining his brother and sister, who were already heading off down the bluff. Left alone, Aerith and Bounder eyed one another with suspicion and hostility. Aerith, to his own horror, found himself wishing he could be so big and handsome and young instead of so old, small, lumpish, and covered with quills. "So, you've been looking after my kits," the fox said. "Leaper asked me to." Bounder lifted one eyebrow suspiciously. "I thought she had passed away." "I came upon her just before she died, Broomtail," Aerith returned. "She was caught in a trap." "Yes, terribly sad." "She asked me to come here, to tell the kits what happened, to take care of them." "Oh?" Bounder said again, conveying doubt. Aerith felt rage boiling up inside of him. "You bet she did, you lump of lizard lung," he shot back. "Only until you got back." Bounder grinned. "Well, here I am." "Are you going to stay with them?" "Well, Aerith, I don't know if that's any of your business. They're my kits. I think I can manage perfectly well without your intruding." So here's a picture of them having this talk. Aerith opened his mouth to say something. He found himself too furious, too upset to speak. "Hey, Dad!" Tumble was calling from the base of the bluff. "Aren't you coming?" "Be right there," Bounder called back. To Aerith, he said, "Look here, Porky. I think it would be best if you left. Why don't you just take off right now? I'm going to be down there for a while. When we get back, I want you gone." "But..." "Hey, Aerith," Bounder said, "face it. It's me, their father. They shouldn't be with you. They shouldn't be with, not you. They don't care about you, don't you see? You're no longer wanted or needed. In other words, Pincushion, you're fired." So saying, Bounder turned his back on Aerith, and with a whisk of his tail that managed to swipe across Aerith's nose, he trotted down the bluff. Aerith watched him go, felt as though he was suffocating with rage and humiliation. His eyes filled with tears. His chest was bursting with pain. "You dumpsy dump of a dog diddle," he muttered furiously. "You stretched out piece of wet worm gut. You bottomless barrel of leftover camel spit. You—" He was so enraged he could speak no more. Even so, for a while, Aerith remained in place, staring down the hill, watching the kits frolic with their father. Then, still boiling with furious hurt, he retreated to the entryway, only to realize that was the last place he should be. "I can't go without saying goodbye to the kits," he told himself. "I can't. And there's nothing that idiot fox can do to prevent me from doing that." With that, Aerith made his way along the bluff until he reached the cleft on its side. From there, he scurried over the bluff, after which he made his way to Leaper's winter food stockpile. Among the trees, the old porcupine chewed at some bark strips, but quickly realized that he had lost his appetite. Instead of eating, he climbed into a tree in search of sleep. In the morning, he would talk to the kits, if they came, alone. And here's a picture of Aerith up in the tree, trying to get some sleep. Chapter 23, Aerith Says Goodbye. It was the first time in a long time that Aerith had slept outside, and he made a poor night of it. Tossing and turning, more than once he almost fell off his perch. He kept waking and craning about to look for the first sign of dawn. Again and again, there was none. Sometimes he felt full of rage. At other moments, he was so full of grief he could almost not see. Aerith's thoughts kept turning to his old life of solitude, before the kits, before Poppy, before these ridiculous feelings, all of which were a direct result of too much contact with other creatures. "There are other places to live besides Dimwood Forest," Aerith told himself. "I'll find one and make sure no one ever sees me again, and I'll never leave that home. Never, never, never." Dawn came at last. When it was a little more than pale pink glimmering along the eastern horizon, Aerith scrambled down from the tree. He went directly to the pile of rocks, trusting that one of the kits would show up sooner or later to get some food. Exactly what he intended to say if anyone appeared, he had no idea. All he knew was that he had to say something. He did caution himself not to say anything bad about Bounder. It would get him nowhere. Worse, it would only, in all probability, anger the kits. Nothing would be gained. As time passed, Aerith tried to wait patiently. He found himself pacing. Around and around the pile he went, pausing now and again to check the progress of the sun in the sky. It was growing late. If he were at the den, those kits would have been up about a long time ago. Then he asked himself what he would do if they did not come. No, they have to come, he kept telling himself. But what if they don't? He wondered. Should he stay the whole day and wait until the next? No. If they did not come soon, he would go and do what he needed to do, which was to find a new home for himself. When the kits finally came, about an hour and a half later, Aerith was daydreaming about burrowing deep inside a dark, smelly log. Startled by a sound, he swung about. Nimble, Tumble, and Flip were right before him, sitting in a row. They were looking at him. Their tails were wagging, their mouths slightly open, their large ears pricked forward. "Aerith!" Flip said. "We didn't expect to see you here." "Where'd you think I'd be, Merkmind?" "Well, Dad said you wanted to get home right away," Nimble explained. And that's why you didn't say goodbye. Is that what he said? Yeah, Tumble said. Aerith took a deep breath. There was a great deal he felt like saying. All he said, however, was, "That isn't true. He told me to go. How come you're all here?" he asked. Tumble said, "Dad said we should have a huge breakfast together. Told us to come up and grab as much as we wanted. A feast. As much as we could carry. That's why." Aerith said nothing. "Aerith," Flip asked cautiously, "are you going home?" "Eventually," Aerith returned, "but I need to hang around." "Why?" Nimble asked. I wanted to say goodbye." "Oh." "Do you think I'd go without that?" Aerith demanded angrily. The foxes exchanged looks but said nothing. They had ceased wagging their tails. As Aerith considered them, he thought they seemed a little sad. Or were they only confused? Or did he only want them to have those feelings? Maybe they were just embarrassed. Maybe they were wishing he had not been there. Flip kept looking over his shoulder back toward the bluff, as if half expecting his father to appear. "Look here," Aerith began, though he found it hard to speak. "I just wanted to say I liked being with you." "It was fun," Flip said after a moment. "Fun," Aerith echoed sadly before continuing. "I really came to, well, like you taught me a lot." "Taught you?" Tumble asked. "What could we teach you?" "Oh, forget it," Aerith mumbled helplessly. "I only wanted to say," Aerith repeated, "that I'm glad I stayed. You're very nice." "I'm glad you think so," Nimble said, giving a slight wag of her tail. And, Aerith struggled, "if you ever, well, need me for anything, you can come and get me." "You never told us where you lived," Flip said. "Cross the field through the forest till you get to the log cabin at Long Lake. Follow the trail south until you reach a gray snag. It's full of mice. I live right next to it, in a log." "Oh, great," Nimble said. "Maybe we'll visit you." "Yeah, right," Aerith returned, not sounding very encouraged or hopeful. Then he remembered what he was doing to find a new home where he could live alone so no one would find him. He didn't let them know about that. No one spoke. The foxes gazed at Aerith, then away, then down at their paws. Aerith, not trusting himself to look at them, stared at his paws too. "I have to go," he suddenly announced. "Be careful until you find that last trap." "Don't worry," Tumble said. "We will." Still Aerith hesitated. "Hope things go well." "We'll be okay," Nimble said. "Okay," Aerith said. Abruptly, he whirled about, took 3 steps, and banged into a tree. "Puckered pine pits!" he screamed. Then he backed off and stumbled away. After 10 yards, he stopped and turned around. The foxes were still sitting there, still looking after him. "One more thing," the porcupine croaked. "If I ever hear that one of you gangling idiots eats a mouse, I'm coming back. And if I do, I'll make your nose look like a cactus in need of a haircut. Remember that." With that, Aerith, not daring to look back, ran away as fast as he could. Oh, goodbye, Aerith. Look at those cute little baby foxes. All right, my friends, we got through 2 chapters. Nice job. All right, remember that you need to do your math. Check and do your flip grid if you haven't. On this flip grid that I posted, let's just try to stick with one video. Kendall suggested that maybe we have kind of an open Flipgrid where people can post videos about different things. I will send your parents a email about that and let them know kind of what the story is. So have a great Tuesday, my friends. I miss you. Enjoy listening to these 2 chapters. We're almost done. Bye, friends.